Let's go!
What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of the Off the Ball podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron, and we are brought to you by the Off the Ball Network. And on today's show, I got a special group of guys joining me. You got a first timer on the show and someone that Knicks Twitter loves right now. So I can't wait for him to come up once we get to that. But got a great show for it. We're gonna talk the NBA trade deadline. We're gonna talk Harden, Simmons, who wins that. The fits, the state of the New York Knicks, because it is in disarray. It is in shambles right now. So we got to talk to New York Knicks. AD went down with an injury. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Zion's health going forward and his outlook. And, of course, we're going to get into some NBA draft. But happy to be back. Haven't done a show in a few weeks, but back, ready to go. And like I said, I got a great group of guys with me. And first, you've seen him on the show before plenty of times. You know, he is an NBA draft guru. He is one of the best in the biz. Urson, what's going on, brother?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I'm looking forward to it. Also with Walker, the new influential guy on Knicks Twitter. So can't wait to talk Knicks with him as well.
Yeah.
So
Taj
happy
Gibson,
to be on again, bro.
Taj Gibson's #1 fan. And yes, like Gerson said, Walker Bailey, first time on the Off the Ball podcast. Really happy to have him on. Like you said, he is a New York Knicks enthusiast, Taj Gibson lover, and and one of the biggest trolls for Knicks Twitter. But Walker, what's going on, man? Happy to have you on the show for the first time.
Not much. I was really glad to see Tibbs got Taj up north of 25 minutes last night. That was
when I saw now I look at the stat sheet and I see how many minutes Taj plays, and I just think about you from now on. That's every time I see 20 plus minutes of Taj Gibson, like it infuriates my soul.
You say things like that tongue in cheek, and like I think 2 nights ago when they lost or a few nights ago when I said to Oklahoma City he had played like 12, and I was like, well, they need to get him north of 20, and someone was like, what? And then I looked up the next night and he had 25. I was like, oh no, he heard me. He took it. Tibbs is listening to the spaces.
Yeah, Tibbs definitely heard you, man.
Tibbs is in the spaces, man. He's in Nick's Twitter spaces, and he's lurking, and he's seeing. Oh wait, I got to play him more. Okay, all right. I thought I got to play him less. Boom, I got to listen to the people.
He built a 28-point lead on the back of that strategy. I was like, oh man, this guy's got some ideas.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, you want Twitter to go to blaze? Let's blow a 28-point lead to a bunch of nobodies on the Nets and not nobodies.
With $100 million on their bench.
Yeah, with their 3 best players not even playing, but we'll save that one for a little bit later. But like I said, we're gonna talk. We got a lot on the schedule for today's show, but let's get into it. I know the trade deadline recently passed, and we saw some big moves made. Even Walker, you're San Antonio Spurs. If you don't know, Walker is a Spurs fan. They made a deal with Derek White, but let's talk about the big one first. Obviously, James Harden being dealt to the Philadelphia 76ers. In return, they get Ben Simmons. We finally the saga is over. The Ben Simmons stuff is finally, thank God, it's finally over. And they also get Seth Curry and Andre Drummond. So we've had a few days to reflect on this, guys. How do we feel about this? How do we feel about the fit moving forward with both teams? And is there any losers in this too? That's what I want. I feel like both teams kind of won because Philly, you get a player that is going to play for you simply, and trading for a player that wasn't playing for you. So I feel like both teams won. But do you guys let me know how you feel about the trade? The fit going forward for these two teams. So Walker, first time on the show, you go first.
Yeah, so I think actually Philly is going to be a TBD though. I think yes, it's great that he's going to play for him, but in the same sense, you mortgaged a lot of your depth, and you also got rid of your future with the first round picks. So you're kind of looking at a scenario where, and I know Harden opted in, so in the next 2 years, you're looking at a scenario where if you don't win a championship, it's hard to come out of this and say that you won. You'll have fan spin and stuff like that, where it's like, oh, we made a conference finals, we played for a championship, but if you don't win one here, this move is ultimately a failure. And on the other side of it, Brooklyn, I don't necessarily know that that's true because the contention window is now larger than it was before because you have the first round picks. You can continue to add to the core. Simmons comes and he's younger and there's still stuff you can tap into with him. And also I think he fits. I was unsure of it at first and how he would fit on the court, But, as many shooters as they have around and as many guys that can catch and attack off the bounce, Simmons' ability to attack the lane and dish is going to be really good there.
Yeah. Urson, how you feel about this?
I think the Nets won the trade. When I saw it, I was like, the Sixers definitely won this one, but I think the Sixers went all in there. They had the first round pick in 2015, 16. They messed a lot of top 5 picks up. And after those years, Embiid missed 2 seasons, and he's not fully healthy. He's not going to play 100% of the time. But these are in playoff time for them, so that doesn't really matter. But he needed a second guy, and I don't know if James Harden is going to be that second guy on that team. But of course, they get one of the best players in the league, MVP a couple of years ago, and they just go for it. They don't have another choice. They were rebuilding for such a long time. They have Joel Embiid entering his prime, even in his prime, and he needs a number 2 to get that team a championship. So they had to make this move. But the reason I like the Nets as the winner, I think as Walker said, you get Ben Simmons, the guy, a superstar with a fresh new start. And a lot of people forget that it was almost Defensive Player of the Year. It was second in the standings.
I think he should have been, personally.
Yeah. And I think the Nets, what they also did very well this year, the 2021 NBA draft was loaded, and they took 3 guys. 3 solid role players. Maybe Cam Thomas get an extra
Hey, we saw what Cam
hit
Thomas
on that
did
one
last
as
night.
well. So
We saw what he did last night from the logo.
we saw what they did last night. But their draft picks were done, they were done. And they added some draft pick, some future leverage as well. So they sent James Harden, who's also going to leave Brooklyn Nets, regardless if he was staying there, because he's not going to extend his contract. So they had to make a move, and they waited it out. Morey waited it out. He can doubt that maybe Philly sent in too much picks for Harden or not. So I think that's more of the details. I think the Nets win this one. They get a new player in Simmons who is, I think he was thriving to come back. He missed almost a half season, $50 million for not playing. So the Nets, I think they won this trade because they are still contenders with KD. KD basically did everything alone last year. So maybe if Kyrie can play later on in the season, Simmons is gonna have a great post All-Star game. So anything happened to that team. They're both contenders, and as Walker said, this season there's so much depth in the contenders. I think last year there were 2 or 3 teams in the East, and now we have at least 5 who are going to just go for it. So long story short, I think the Nets won this one.
Yeah, and just to recap the trade again, obviously Brooklyn gets Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond. They get a 2022 first-round pick right to defer until 2023, and a 2027 first-round pick that's protected, top 8. Philly gets James Harden and also Paul Millsap. And for Brooklyn, I think they kind of got they needed a big man desperately, right? Desperately. Like Claxton just wasn't. He's more of a off the bench type of big, right? As a starter in the East going against Embiid, and it just wasn't going to work out. They needed someone. So to get Drummond, who's kind of fresh too, like he was back, he was playing backup, to Embiid this year with the Sixers and all that. So you get a big like that, as a kind of like a throw in, and that's to me that was huge. And then you get Seth Curry, right? Joe Harris being out, and we don't know when Joe Harris is even going to come back. Right, it's kind of been a mystery with Joe Harris, and let's face it, Joe Harris didn't show up last year in the playoffs too, and I feel like I think they just don't trust Joe Harris going forward, and they gave him a lot of money too, So you get Seth Curry who has hit big shots and could shoot, I think that was big, and like I said, you get Ben Simmons who can guard, and they need defense too, like they even with Kyrie and KD, they couldn't defend, they can't defend, So getting a player like that who can defend multiple positions was to me was clutch, and for Philly. Like I said, you're getting a guy you could pair perfectly with Embiid. Like they could do so much. Like and they talked about like Embiid doesn't run a lot of pick and rolls, where the pick and pops, pick and rolls, and all that. I think we're going to see more of that. I don't know about you guys. I think we're going to see more of that in Joel's game, because to me that's what James Harden thrives on. We saw that a lot with Capella and all that. And like obviously he doesn't, is not the rim runner. Embiid's not the rim runner the way Capella was, but I feel like you're going to see a lot more of that. So how do you? Who has the most pressure? Who has the most pressure? It's Philadelphia, right?
It's Philadelphia. You have 2 years to win a championship, whereas Brooklyn, you have a multitude of years to figure this thing out. But no, I mean Philadelphia, you are what you are for the next 2 years, and like that's it. Like go win. Like it's winning time. Like, I mean, immediately it's starting, I guess whatever 5 days ago when Harden officially got traded. I mean, it's go time now. Got to win in the next 2 years, and if you don't, then you're probably in a place where you're rebuilding around a 31-year-old Joel Embiid. So
yeah, I think that's my biggest worry is Joel's health, because we know big men break down, and it usually just happens. Like and we obviously know he's had an injury history. Like he was hurt last year, and that he was the MVP last year.
Yeah,
I feel like the injuries cost him the MVP, right? And then right now he is the MVP, I would say, but injuries can hamper that. So I always worry about him and his injuries and whether it's going to catch up, and I worry about that with KD too, like with Kevin Durant, because it seems like they're piling up. Obviously, he had the massive injury with the Achilles, but it feels like he's, every year since he's been in Brooklyn, it feels like he's had those lingering injuries, right? So to me, it's always with health at Embiid and all that. And let me ask you this. Let's say New York City, they change their rules. The mandate is lifted and Kyrie can play home games too. Does that change expectations for Brooklyn?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, definitely, man.
Has to.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I really do have a gut, because we saw Adam Silver on ESPN with Greeny say, this is some BS, because the fact that you could be an opposing player unvaccinated and you could play at the Barclays or at the Garden, but if you're unvaccinated and you're on the Brooklyn or the Knicks, you can't. It's kind of a rule that just doesn't make sense. And he said this doesn't make sense. And then you saw the mayor, Eric Adams, kind of like say, yeah, it doesn't make sense. And so just a gut feeling, I feel like it will get lifted. And I think Kyrie will be able to play home and away games, because I think he wants to play. It's not a matter of he doesn't want to play at all. He wants to play. It's just there's a rule in place that you can't play if you're unvaccinated and you're a home player. I don't get it. The rule is stupid to me, but I think if it gets lifted, I think it will get lifted. That changes everything for Brooklyn now. And that makes them, and you get, if Ben is right and all that, this team could be dangerous no matter where they are. No matter where they are seeded wise, and I think they're going to be, in that hunt to get back. And but for Philly, there's pressure, man. They need to get this thing going in the next 2 years. They got to do it. There's pressure on Doc, because we all know Doc's history. Like, yeah, he's a championship coach, but he's had a lot of teams that have failed, right? And just last year, right? they lost to a Hawks team, So, and Embiid, like I said, we got the injury history, and Harden too. Do you think Harden's motivated? You think we're going to get that? Do you think we get Houston Harden back, or do you think the Harden we saw in Brooklyn is kind of what we're going to see going forward?
I think he just finally got what he wanted. And I think that's probably like a pressure reliever. I think he's probably happy. Motivated, I don't know, but a lot of times when those things happen, it kind of is a source of motivation. I mean, I think he just finally is where he wants to be, playing with the guys that he wants to play with.
Well, he wanted to go there. That was his first choice too.
That was his first choice.
That was his first choice. He wanted to go there.
Yeah,
initially.
He reluctantly accepted Brooklyn but he wanted to play in Philly, and now he's in Philly, so he's probably motivated and happy, and you probably see whatever he's got left this year. I mean, I just find it hard to believe, though, that you flip the switch from being bad to being that again. I think that takes a build-up. Maybe we get there by the postseason, but I mean, that's really all Philly's hoping for, I think. Other than that, you're just kind of jockeying for seeding.
Yeah. What about you, Arson?
I think it's a Cinderella story, man, this whole trade. I think for Darren Morey, he wasn't able to get a solid number 2 for James Harden in Houston. Now he's in Philly. Now he's with Embiid. So I think for Darren Morey, this is his dream coming true, man. Get him back, get him with Embiid, make a run for the championship. But I agree with Walker. It's 2 years. They have to win it. If they don't win it, it's done. So, but Philly is in a stage where they have to go for it. So I understand the trade, but I think James Harden, he wants Philly, and he has to show for it. Man. He has no excuses left. It's now or never for him, because he wanted this place. He is there. He's with the league's MVP, or maybe in the second in the MVP and Embiid. I think what else can you want? And the role players that they have are very good. You talked about the pick and rolls. I think Tyrese Maxey is one of the most efficient guards in the NBA as the pick and roll ball handler, next to DeJounte Murray a couple of other guys alongside maybe Chris Paul. So that says a lot about the talent they have in that team. I think the depth is a little bit less than what they have in Brooklyn, but Sixers are a solid team nevertheless. I think even in games without Embiid, they were still competing. So I think with Embiid, that's going to make the whole difference for the Sixers team. But they have James Harden now as maybe the number 1 or number 2 guy, depending on how you look for it. I see him as the number 2 on that team. But I don't know. I'm happy for him, man. He's finally in the spot where he belongs, and he's finally being paired to another star. What he always wanted when he was in Houston. So
I think we're going to see. Obviously, we see Ben. He came out the line. He's out. He's on the bench, and we're seeing him. He looks refreshed. He looks like he's motivated to help his Brooklyn team, do some work. And same thing with James and all that. I think both teams win. They get the guys they want. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how they look forward. Going forward. Hopefully, Ben is ready to go soon. I don't know when his exact target date is to suit up for Brooklyn. I don't know if it's going to be the end of February or beginning of March. We'll see that. And same thing with James and all that. But both teams got their guys. Daryl Morey is a James Harden loyalist. Like he took a chance on a young kid from OKC that was the 6th man of the year and made him the face of the Houston franchise. So like I get that loyalty and wanted to win a championship together. So interesting to see. But were there any other trades that you guys thought benefited the team that got such whatever player? Obviously Walker White was traded and to Boston. I thought that was an absolute great deal for Boston.
Just for
everyone. Everyone won, but like for Boston, they kind of needed that.
Well, and like he had like his career best plus minus the other night. Like he was a plus 41 or something like that. Like they against Philadelphia. Yeah. And like so Derek White's. He just makes Boston so much more versatile now, and he brings a level of defense to that team that they didn't have before. And then for San Antonio on the flip side, you get a young guy in Romeo Langford where you get to tap into his development. You get to tap into his development where Boston kind of has a weird developmental history lately. And so you get to tap into the development. You get their first round pick as long as they don't totally crater out here. And so you pull assets and they create cap space. You get Derek White's cap off the books. We talked about it pre-show, just the renouncing of Lonnie Walker's rights, which I would guess is likely. Gets them to around $32 million in cap space with 3 first-round draft picks going into the draft this summer. So, I think it's in a place where they position themselves to do whatever it is that they want to do. They have the power to go and acquire any type of financial deal that they want to acquire or sign anybody that they want to sign. Or we even talked about moving up in the draft. Like, do you use that money in free agency and pull draft picks to move up in the draft and take a guy like Jabari Smith or Chet Holmgren? So I think that they've given themselves a lot of freedom to do whatever they want to do. And I think that was the goal coming into the deadline.
I think Pop might re-sign for 5 more years if he gets Jabari, man. I might have to
stay we were talking about
Pop might have to stay for that. No retirement.
We were talking about Pop on the Twitter Spaces the other day, and there's just and I have this kind of sourced out where he's such an egotistical son of a gun. Like I just think that the drive to compete is still there. I think he's still around for a while. I think the drive to compete and leave the Spurs in a better place than he found it is probably still something that's there. And I don't think he's going to want to retire on a team that could be potentially picking in the top 5 and just saying like, all right, guys, good luck.
Yeah. So do you think that is a factor? Like, let's say that they hit the freaking lottery again, like they did with Tim Duncan.
Well, I think if they were the 6th seed and got put out in the first or second round of the playoffs, it's a lot different than being a top 5 team. Like if they were in purgatory, then it'd be like, all right, like I'm going to step out and y'all can figure it out.
Yeah.
But them being bad, I think that leaving the organization at a better place than he found it is something that he wants to do. And I guess hypothetically, the counterpoint to that is, well, he's leaving you with 5 more championships than you had. Well, yeah, but and that's valid, but very valid. But
take that.
I just don't think he wants to walk out on a team that's one of the 5 worst teams in basketball. I think he wants to maybe try to run it back one more time.
Do you think not to get off track, but with Pop, Because that everyone's has said, well, this coach is going to be the successor. Like Becky Hammond was supposed to be, the future successor. Do you think for him is also trying to find the right person to be like successor? Like,
I mean, I have a theory.
Go.
I have a theory. I have a theory that he's hanging around long enough to groom Manu Ginobili within the organization to be the next head coach of the San Antonio Spurs.
Oh, Urson, how you feel about that? Manu as the hey.
I like these always talking.
Is Manu a part of the organization? I'm not. You're more tapped in with the Spurs.
He's working with a legitimate role in the organization, something to do with scouting and stuff like that right now.
Okay,
it's like
so
he's
in
around.
The organization. It's not like like a
no. It's not like he is a special assistant to the GM where he's sitting on a beach somewhere in South America, drinking Bellinis or whatever he does in his free time.
You know what? That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah, and so I
think about that.
I think Manu's gonna want to do the dad thing for a few more years, but I think Pop. I mean, you get 2 to 3 more years out of him, and maybe Manu's itch to win, and clearly it's still there, and he just knew he couldn't play anymore. Because if it wasn't there, he wouldn't be working within the organization because it's not a money thing. Like that guy doesn't need any more money, and
of course,
so. I think, I think that's it's a way out there theory. I never really bought the Becky Hammond thing. Like I wasn't all the way in, and it really had nothing to do with her. It just felt like whenever the time comes, like for Pop to retire, that one of those former players is going to come back and be involved because you saw Duncan on the sideline as an assistant for a full season, and he even took over. And I thought it was kind of weird because Pop missed a game. I think it was when his wife. And Becky was not the head coach. Tim was the head coach. And then Tim came out and was like, well, we did it by committee. Well, I mean, but he still named you the acting head coach. You were the one standing up with the play sheet. And so, I mean, maybe we're making too much out of that, but I never fully bought into the Becky Hammond as the next head coach thing. So there's my theory on the post-retirement.
That's interesting.
I like it, man.
That's interesting. It kind of makes sense, right? Because, Udoka's not there. That was possibly someone that thought maybe could be.
Well, Udoka and Borrego both.
He's gone.
Kenny Atkinson maybe is a guy that was on the staff there.
Yeah.
Another name that people talked about with head coaching experience already, although at the college level that was a former player, was Avery Johnson. And I'm not vouching for Avery Johnson at all.
No, I think his time has come and gone. Like he's had
I think
Dallas
so
and Brooklyn. I think it's. And
but I mean, there's guys there. I just think with as much as Pop talked about Manu basically being a de facto assistant coach the last few years, and then wanting to bring him wanting to stay in the organization as a non-player, I think that there's a chance that he's on the sideline, maybe running the team in a few years. He's just still so active within the organization. I think that Pop may give him the first opportunities to succeed him, and then them just leave the rest of the staff in place.
That's really interesting. Okay. All right. I'm going to be thinking about that more. That possibility. That's really interesting. Like I said, it makes sense too, to groom, a guy like Manu to eventually be the coach down the line. Cause like I said, there's some guys who are not there no more that doesn't make sense, obviously. So, that's interesting. That's very interesting. I'm looking forward to see how that works. But was there any other deals at the deadline that you liked that stood out to you?
For me, I think the one that I liked was the Pistons one for Marvin Bagley.
Yeah,
they didn't give up much.
They free Bagley. Yeah. They free Bagley finally.
They didn't give up much. They gave him, there was a 4-team trade, so. But they could get Bagley, a former number 2 pick, and they needed one man in that position, so they basically get a project for almost free. So that one was the one I liked as well. So, but overall, it was mostly the Spurs dominating the deadline, and the moves that they made were simply brilliant. I mean, they were one of the worst teams of the league coming into the season. We're gonna tank. We won another good pick, in next year's draft, and they consolidated because Derek White is too good to be on the bench. He deserves to be a starter somewhere else. So they have to, capitalize on him. So they got some good returns on that one. They got some expiring contracts and 2 first-round picks, as Walker says. So they basically, added assets to make a big move in the summer.
Yeah.
So I think the Spurs are definitely the winners of the deadline.
So
And the
I
other one
looked
that
it
I
up.
liked was the Cavaliers
The
one.
Spurs keep winning, man.
I looked it up because I
Keep
couldn't
winning.
remember what the role is, but here's Waj's exact description of what Manu's doing. Manu returned as an advisor to basketball operations, where he is focusing on a player-centric role of player development on and off the court. So he's basically hands-on in all of the player development right now.
Okay, so that makes sense.
He's basically getting intimate knowledge of the roster.
Okay, so that's the seed planted. Okay, so now that makes a lot more sense now. Okay, and that's the
That
first time,
supports
like I
your
said, I've
theory
heard.
as well, man.
Yeah, that makes a lot. I want to talk about one trade in particular, and it was a little bit before the actual deadline, and that's the Sacramento Kings dealing, Tyrese Halliburton. So the deal was Halliburton, Buddy Hield, Tristan Thompson, who has been waived, for Sabonis, Jeremy Lamb, Justin Holiday, and a 27 second-round pick. I don't know about you guys, but I think Sacramento made a huge mistake in trading Halliburton. I think he's someone that's a future All-Star. I loved him coming out. I thought that should have been the Knicks' target. When they took Obi Toppin, to me, and I liked Obi too, but to me, Halliburton, Cole Anthony, one of those two guys should have been New York Knicks. But I digress. But I don't want to get depressed right now. We're going to talk about the Knicks in a little bit. But how do you feel about that trade? For both teams, I think Indiana, got a really good player, that's it's already making an impact right away. So how do we feel about that trade? Walker, you go first.
Yeah, Indiana won out great. I talked about the Sacramento side a lot somewhere else, just post deadline show. Like, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense from a fit standpoint, like De'Aaron and Sabonis, and like there's just a lot of like pieces there, and it just doesn't really make a whole ton of sense.
It's Sacramento, so I mean,
what do you?
I was shocked that they make moves that don't make sense.
And then you listen to Halliburton today. Halliburton was on ESPN today with Malika Andrews talking about, how refreshing it is and how much different it is to be in an organization that has an idea how to win. And I was like,
shots fired.
Yeah. And so he, just all of that. I mean, and then he's gone and he's averaging like 21 and 11, and
he's killing it. He's killing it. Like I just don't get why they made it. To me, I would have found every reason to try to move Fox instead. I know he's a great player and all that, but to me,
he's a great player.
I give the keys to me. I want to give the keys to Halliburton and let him take that, because I think he is a future All-Star. And I said this, I've talked to you guys in the chat room and all that. Like, if they traded Fox and they let Tyrese get the keys, he's a future All-Star in a year or two. I have no doubt. I think he's a future
All-Star next year at this rate.
I mean, he's gonna be an All-Star. He might be an All-Star next year in Indiana. The way he playing, he's gonna average 29.
I know he's only playing. I know he's only played 4 games there, but if he maintained those numbers over the course of a half of the season, he's an All-Star.
Yes. I just don't get it. Erson, does this make any sense, this trade to you?
The theory I had was, they want to get rid of Buddy Hield. They pay him $20 million.
They sacrifice Tyrese Halliburton to get rid of But that's such a Sacramento Kings thing to do, and that's the problem over there, is that they do stuff that just the drafting hasn't. A lot of the drafting hasn't made sense.
They made a lot of mistakes.
Like they drafted. Remember they drafted Papagiannis, with the 10th pick a few years back, and everyone was like, "What? What was that?" Like. Even the Knicks, front office was like, "Oh, we wouldn't have done that." It's just like I don't get what they're doing over there. Like it's really bad over there. It doesn't make sense what they're doing at all.
Yeah, they drafted 3 ball dominant guards: Mitchell, Halliburton, Fox. They paid Fox, and they basically had a choice: am I going with Fox or am I going with Halliburton? They chose Fox. I like Sabonis as a player, but as Walker said, the fit isn't really there. There are more pieces, but not a puzzle piece. Or there's puzzle pieces that won't fit, So I think this is the start of a lot of other moves. I think Richaun Holmes and Sabonis, that fit isn't really there.
No.
Fox and Sabonis, I don't really like that fit. But the only plus I see for Kings is they got rid of Buddy Hield, who's basically just a shooter. And what else does he do? A whole lot. So, but the Pacers got great value. But I think the Kings got great value as well, because if they plan to build around Sabonis, add some pieces in the draft for that, you can make a theory of that. But Personally, I would move Fox without any doubt.
And I want to emphasize that this is no disrespect to Sabonis. Like and I've said this before, and people like Sabonis. It's like I know Sabonis he's an all-star. He's a 20-10 guy. I truly get it. He's a really good player. But to give up a guy like Tyrese Halliburton, I know we're talking about potential, but I feel like we're seeing it already. Like it's not so much you're just buying off just potential.
He was starting to take over, and boom, he's gone.
Yeah, we're seeing it. So it's like it's there. And all we were waiting for was him to get the keys, all the keys to be able to unlock, right? That was the only thing missed. And that's why I was like, and I understand the Fox deal is probably hard to his contract's massive. So it's hard to deal a contract like that. But to sacrifice, Larson, like your theory of like, we just wanted to get rid of the Buddy Hield deal, but you're going to sacrifice a great player, like a potential future all. I don't think it was worth it, but
potential future face of the franchise.
Yeah, he would have been the franchise. I think he would have been the franchise. And to build off that, like you desperately need that in Sacramento, right? It has been a dumpster fire. 15 straight years they have not made the playoffs. Like they have been an absolute, like since that great run they had in those 2000s, early 2000s, it's been downhill since. Like it has been a disaster, and you finally got. And it's not like you had to waste like a top 3 pick on like a guy. Like they wasted Bagley, right, with the number 2 pick. You took Tyrese with what? He was the 10th pick. Top 10 pick. Like no, what was he? I forgot.
11, 12.
11th, right? 11 or 12. And you got a steal, and he's there, and like we've seen it. Like you just know that this guy's going to be a great player. And they got rid of him. Like I said, you got Sabonis. I get it, great player, but I don't know how much impact he's going to make for you down that much, for this team. So definitely a trade that I kind of scratched a lot of people's head and all that. So we'll see how it goes for them. But I think Indiana just got themselves a stud, and he's already shown it just in a few games. He's played really good ball. I think almost 20 points. 21, 17, 22, 23, 14 assists, 8 assists, 6. I mean, he's done it all. Like 3, he's had I think he's had almost 10 steals in that span. He's played great, shot over 50%. Indiana got themselves a good one. I know that they're in rebuild mode and all that, but that's a good piece to rebuild around. And you got Chris Duarte and all that. And I'm sure with Brogdon, they'll try to flip him in the offseason to try to get some more young pieces and all that. So, they might be onto something. So we'll see how that goes. But let's Urson. All right. This is probably what Walker's been waiting for. So, we spent a half hour talking about, he's probably like, who cares about the deadline? Let's talk about what we want to talk about. The New York Knicks. All right. So last night, the New York Knicks were up by 28 points. And I was at work. All right. So I work overnights. So, I'm always watching on the phone if I can. Up 28 against a team with no Kevin Durant, who's out. Kyrie obviously can't play home games. Ben Simmons is not ready to play yet. There's Cam Thomas. There's Seth Curry. There's Bruce Brown. They're up 28. At home, it should be done. Even I put my phone down. And I usually it's never over till it's over. In the NBA, we all know it's a game of runs. Put my phone down. I was like, all right, they got this in the bag. Okay, no worries. Not too much long later, I'm like, it's a tie game. What the hell happened? And they blew it. And they lost. Cam Thomas hit a 3. They're up 3. Cam Thomas pulls up almost from the damn logo. Hits it in his face. The Knicks lose. It has been, I'm looking at my calendar in the back, my Knicks calendar. They've won 1 game this month. They've lost to an Oklahoma City team that did not have their 2 best players, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I think Lou Dort was out, and they blew that. I know Walker is smiling, and it's kind of pissing me off that he's smiling, but what the hell is going on in New York City, guys? It has been an absolute. It feels like it's been 10 years since they were the 4th seed and in the playoffs with home court advantage. It has been an absolute rough start. They are 25-34. They're sitting 2.5 games out of the last play-in spot from another disappointing team in the Atlanta Hawks. They're an awful home team. Awful home team. They are 13-17 at home. A place where you thought it was a home court advantage, right? Everyone talks about the Garden.
Nah, that's the career high center now.
Yeah, like we're seeing guys who like, I just saw Jose Alvarado.
Mm-hmm.
He had a career high. This guy was undrafted.
To be fair, though, his career high, like that was like a
13 points.
Game. Like,
he barely played 13 games. So.
But still, this is an undrafted dude, and he comes to the Garden and gives you buckets, and it's a trend. Now we see Cam Thomas just absolutely take over, a rookie take over at the Garden.
16 in the fourth,
and hits the dagger to win, and caps off a 28-point comeback. What the hell is wrong with the New York Knicks? I mean, we could talk about it. There's abundance of things and that we can mention and all that, but Walker, you go first. I know this, like I said, this you're smiling and
this is your time, man. Time to shine.
I don't want to blow your cover, but in the spaces world, but talk to me as an outsider looking into this team. What is the problem with this New York Knicks team?
I mean, where do you start?
There's a lot.
I mean, you can start with the fact that the president of basketball operations is a ghost. You can start with the fact that the coach seems to have lost the team and they're not playing hard anymore. Like, I mean, for me, it wasn't even because last night you're down 99-97. Julius Randle hits a step back jumper to tie it, and Brooklyn comes down. And not even, game on the line, gets not one, not two, but like 3 offensive rebounds, and like is falling out of bounds, making
LaMarcus falling out of bounds. I'm like, and it just he flips it in the air, and they get it. And it's just like that to me is a microcosm of the season. That play was the Knicks season.
Yeah, it's the plays that the Knicks used to make, and like they're not doing that anymore. They're not playing hard. It's everybody. One of the most popular takes is to play all these young guys, but like your young guys aren't exactly just great players.
They're no blue chippers.
No, and people were like, "Oh, we're tired of seeing Alec Burks running late game offense. Let's see Quickly." Well, Quickly came in, got a wide open look last night for a chance to take the lead, potentially win the game. He missed it pretty bad, and couldn't guard anybody on the other end, and so you got what you want there. Like, that's not the solve all. Like, I mean, yeah, I guess if you want to play those guys and be bad and try again at the draft thing that you don't do very well, then sure, go ahead. But there's just so many issues there. And you just have to try to patch as many of them as possible. Like, I think the time has come to move on from Julius Randle. Come the summertime, I think that there probably needs to be a move made at the head coaching spot, because I just think he's almost kind of lost the team. And I think it's a little bit too late for, we're going to play all these guys and whatever. Like, I just think you're at a place now where those guys just – year or two of Tibbs's voice has consistently been a problem everywhere he's been. And it seems to be a problem now. Go hire someone. And the problem is, though, the problem with the fire Tibbs thing is okay, well, then who are you hiring? And I'll leave that.
Exactly. Everybody wants him fired, but they have no solution of who's going to take over.
Right. And I don't have that solution. So is it time to fire him? Probably. But who am I going to hire? I don't know. And you can't fire a coach without someone to hire as the coach. Although I think promoting from within and hiring Kenny Payne would be pretty good. But yeah. So and then okay, you get rid of Randall. Well, then what? Then you're just a horrible team. You're a horrible team with no first scoring option, and you can play the young guys and hope, and none of those guys are first scoring options. That's not even in their upside.
No,
that's not even in their wildest of high ceilings.
Exactly. Agreed.
And so you hope that you hope that you're bad enough to get one in the draft. So what? You're going to wait around for 20 more years for the Knicks to draft somebody good? You're going to hope that they find a superstar point guard? It's been kind of do the wild trade rumors thing again all off season, and they'll sit on their hands because they don't really I think they expect people to give the Knicks a bargain in these trade deals, and it never happens. They didn't do anything at the deadline. They could have sold off some of those older guys to create minutes, and Tibbs is in press conferences talking about, well, nothing's off limits now. anybody can come get minutes. Well, it'd be a lot easier for those cats to earn minutes if you had traded some guys at the deadline, and you didn't. So, I mean, it's an organizational dysfunctionality from top to bottom that can't be solved in one off season or one season. It's going to take a long time. And I mean, I think the problem is they've been doing that now since the century turned.
Man, it's bad. Urson, talk to me, bro. Try to calm me down. My nerves are shot. I don't try to get too high on wins, and I try not to get too low on losses. Right? I've kind of like worked on that, but that game last night, it killed my mood at work. I went from talking to my coworker, in the truck, and we were chatting, and I saw that on my phone, and I shut down. And I was mute for the rest of the night, because working. I was mute. I was like, this one bothers me. This loss bothered me. Like, and I don't let losses like that get to me no more. But it hurt. It hurt me.
Well, I mean, 3 blown 20-point leads in a week will do that.
But this one in particular, like the OKC one was bad too. Like that was bad. But then they topped it off with this one. Like you're going against a team that, just came off losing 11 in a row. Right? They just made a massive trade. So like the roster is kind of in flux right now. They don't have their guys, right? They don't have Simmons, no Kyrie, no KD. And you blew a 28-point lead. We're not talking about LaMarcus Aldridge in San Antonio and Portland. We got old LaMarcus Aldridge. He out there, he looking like vintage LaMarcus Aldridge with his mid-range, just looking dominant. You got Cam Thomas out here, playing like he was out of LSU, just doing whatever he wants, step back, fade away through, jump shots and all this, doing whatever he wants as a rook. Bruce Brown just getting rebounds, dunking on people. Seth Curry just wide open. Like that doesn't. Why is he wide open so many times? He's gonna hit it. He's a 40+% 3-point shooter. Why? Like it just. Patty Mills too. Why is he so wide open?
But man, and you got to a point where Bruce Brown is waving goodbye. Like there's just no respect.
He waved goodbye to us. I just broke.
And everyone was sitting there taking it, man. So.
No, and then you got KD on Twitter with Bark. Oh, I mean, the Garden was really loud tonight. No, there's no respect for the Knicks anymore. From the outside looking in, like there's no respect, and that's the problem. You have to. I mean, it starts with making the Garden a hard place to win again. And 13-17 isn't that.
They're 13-17 at home this year. I think that is just absolutely. I've been to 2 Knicks games this year. They both got blown out by 20. They played Denver and the Suns. Obviously, it's they're 2 pretty good teams, but like to get blown out, they're getting blown out at home, and they're also losing to teams that they should not be losing to at home. You cannot lose to Oklahoma City at home when they don't have their best player playing, and that young, they're babies, that team, and you let Josh Giddey just come in here and get a triple double, and then you let Cam it's Trey Man Ball, and we got rookies dominating against you guys. It's just, it's more to me than just. And I know the fire Tibbs thing is hot right now, right? That's everyone wants to fire Tibbs, and I think it's more than just Tibbs being the issue. Yes, maybe some of his lineups and the substitution patterns are just not ideal, but. Let's be real. This roster isn't like all that great. Like let's keep it a buck. Like and this was my fear going into this season. Like the high of last year, right? And I think last year was great. Like especially when you had 7-8 straight seasons of what we saw. 50 loss seasons after 50 loss seasons, 60 loss seasons, winning 44 games. I mean, you're gonna take that and you're gonna try to build off that. And I think them staying put and kind of keep running it back. I wasn't too mad at them for doing it, but I was like, okay, you got to do something at the deadline or something. You got to bring in a point guard or something. And I've been on the point guard thing for freaking forever. I just at this point I'm sick that I have to keep reiterating that they need a point guard. I'm not asking for an all-star level point, but they need someone that can put people. Alex Burks running a point. Yeah. I'm gonna throw up. Kemba, obviously, it was worth throwing a bone and seeing. Let's see if we got anything left in Kemba. And it's just like he doesn't have that much left, right? He just spurts. Like he can't play, 25, 30 minutes anymore. Those days are gone. And relying on Derrick Rose, just another one. You can't play him a lot of minutes. So it's just like it's bad. It's bad. It's hit the lowest point this season, and it's back to LOL Knicks. It's back to LOL Knicks, where like we are even though we don't have the worst record, nobody cares that Detroit is worse and the Houston Rockets are worse, or
the Spurs are worse than the Knicks. And look at the difference between
nobody cares. But
Nobody
once the Knicks are bad, it's LOL Knicks. It's
but it's the
be
way that they're bad.
Yes. It's the way
that they're bad.
Yes.
Nobody's laughing when the Spurs go in and lose by 12 to the Suns and Phoenix and just lose.
Yeah.
Like nobody's laughing if they lose by 12 to anybody if they just lose.
Yes.
Like it's the fact that in 3 of their last 7 games, the Knicks have blown 20-plus point leads.
There's 3 in the last 3.
And they've led in like 11 of their last 12 games and lost like
their last 3, right?
Last 3.
The last 3. Just think about it.
Okay,
the last 3 games.
Nets.
Look who they played, and look at the team they played. Their roster. All right. The Trailblazers. Let's go back a couple games. So they play the Warriors, right? Assume they're gonna lose, right? They just came off losing 4 in a row. You're like, all right, they're gonna get drubbed. They win. A good win, a much-needed win, right? On the road against one of the best teams in the NBA. Not just in the West, in the NBA, a championship caliber team. You beat them by 2. You play great. You play the Trailblazers. Another team, no Dame. They just traded CJ McCollum. That's a game. They were up big. They blow it. All right? Thunder, you go back at home. All right. We should beat the Thunder. There's no SGA. They blow it again. And then the Nets, same thing. It's how they're losing. Walker, you just mentioned. It's not, the Spurs could lose by 10, whatever. Hey, close game, but it got out of hand late because they just don't have enough talent. Okay, you get that. When you're blowing 20-point leads after 20-point leads and against inferior opponents, I'm sorry, you're gonna get cracked on. I'm sorry. So like when you see people get emotional, like people getting mad at people make fun. We just lost 3 straight games where the other team was missing their best players. Their best players. Their best player. The Brooklyn had no KD, no Kyrie, no Ben Simmons. Thunder had no SGA, no Lou Dort. Trailblazers just made a massive trade. There's no Damian Lillard playing. CJ just got traded. I can't get mad when people are cracking on the Knicks. I can't. Yeah. It's inexcusable how they're losing because they're up big on these games, and you have a good. Even with I know RJ's been out too. I don't want that to be an excuse. That's not a good enough excuse to be like, well, we didn't have RJ. Well, those teams didn't have. There's no SGA. There's no Dame Lillard, and there's no KD. Okay, that kind of tops not having RJ. So there's no excuses for blowing these leads. It's inexcusable how they've been playing, and it's not just these last 3 games. It's been the whole month. It's been the turn of it's been since 2022. It's been this way for a while. It's bad, and there's no fix. There's no fix. You can't. There's no way. There's free agency. You can't. All right. Well, we got free agency. Maybe we can go get player A. There is no player A like that. This free agency is not it. Like Bradley Beal.
You could add a superstar to this team, and it's like a 7 seed.
Yeah, and even if you go make a trade, let's say a hypothetical, you go get Dame, one of these guys that may be available. That doesn't make you're still not where you want to be. There's still so much more. And I go back to the previous years. Urson, we talked about this so many times. The bad drafting, the missing on top 10 picks. There's so many guys they passed. And listen, it's always easy. Hindsight's always 2020. Oh, they passed up on Donovan Mitchell and they passed up on player or whatever. But they have missed on so many guys. And then, you got guys like Tyrese Halliburton who are thriving. Like, imagine if you flipped Obi and that's Tyrese Halliburton, how much different this team dynamic is. And to me, that's catching up to them because now they have to do stuff like re-sign Derrick Rose and re-sign Nerlens Noel and get a Kemba Walker, and give Julius Randle 4 years. Because let's be real. People could harp on Julius Randle. I'm sorry I'm ranting here, but I have a lot to say. But people go harp on Julius Randle a lot, right? That's his effort and all that. You had to re-sign him, kind of. Because if you don't re-sign him, this team's an even bigger dumpster fire than what it is right now. Do you guys agree? Like, if they let Julius Randle just walk, and you just have RJ Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, and the same roster, oh my God, how bad we are.
Yeah, but could you argue that the franchise is in a better place moving forward if they are a bigger dumpster fire than they are right now?
But what's the solution? Like, are you just gonna? Oh, you know what? Are we gonna go back to the same old? We got cap space, we got picks, guys, that's the solution. Come to the New York Knicks. These guys don't care about that no more. The lure of New York City is not going to attract players. People don't care about that. They don't care about that. So
when you can go to Brooklyn and it's a short drive.
Exactly. And you can go to Brooklyn and you don't got to deal with the same media pressure. There's no LOL Brooklyn, So like, to me, that's like relying on cap space and all. It's shown in the past. You've done it. How many times have they had cap space, draft picks, New York City, and no one's come? So so we get mad at Julius Randle's this and that, but to me, Julius Randle, yes, he hasn't lived up to what he did last year, but did we expect that? Like, did we really expect him to stay at that level? He's not that player. So like, when people get so
actually, you give a good point, but what they did, the mistake that they made is not resigning him. He was the most improved player. I think he's eligible. He gave him the money, but the mistake they made is that they got guys he clearly doesn't want. He clearly didn't want Kemba. He clearly didn't want Fournier. I think Reggie Bullock was a great complementary piece. And those guys, they had chemistry, man. They played together for 2 years. Elfrid Payton, they had chemistry. I thought Elfrid Payton was bad and he had to go, but Reggie Bullock was the guy they had to resign. And they had to get a point guard. It doesn't really matter how good he is. Look at Derek White, for example. They could have traded for him.
For example, that's all I'm looking for. A point guard like that type
just
of
a guy that can make plays, that can score a decent clip. That's exactly what Knicks. Even that is something that they are not able to do. So a lot of people blame Julius Randle, and he kind of rooted himself with all the negative body language. And, it was clear that he's not having a good time in New York.
No, and listen, let's be real. Losing. Yeah. Hey, you lose, you're just not going to feel good. Like, let's just keep it real. Like, losing, it gets to you, right?
I think 3 parties are at fault: front office, coach, players.
Listen, Tibbs deserves.
It's a dumpster fire. The coach can be fired. It doesn't solve anything.
Yeah, but firing Tibbs right now does not solve this team's issues.
Yeah, who are they going to make the coach?
It starts at the top, and I'm not talking about Dolan and all that. I'm talking about the front office.
Dolan does. I think Dolan does a great job.
This front office came in, star-studded, right?
Yeah.
And supposed
from
to
everyone, Dolan was the best job.
They got connections. They got this World Wide West over there. Leon Rose, former LeBron James agent, LOA, all this, blah 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 blah. Hey, they gonna go.
Yeah, look what happened. They got a couple of second-round picks, and they're hyped. I think James Dolan, who was criticized the most, he did the best job of everyone. He stayed offline. He's not really.
He's back. Like,
he's just sitting at games.
I hired you to build a competent team, and guess what? We right back to where we were just a few years ago. We're almost 10 games under 500. Where we're not in the playoffs right now, and it was the worst is that they're like outside. Like right now, they'd be the 10th pick right now. So like you can't even get in that top 5 race. Like you have to straight.
Yeah, he's not the problem.
So Dolan's not the problem. Everyone, I understand Dolan's. He's not the greatest.
Yeah, you can say a lot of things about Dolan, but he's not the problem.
Lately, he's not the issue right now. Dolan. The issue with the front office is just sitting back, like they don't know. They're being incompetent right now, and it's more than just Tibbs and all that. Tibbs got to work what he got to work with. And listen, we talked about this time. Like they're in like a roster identity crisis because they have vets. And then they got young guys. Everybody wants to play the young guys, but like Walker, we talked before, they don't got blue chippers though. It's not blue chipper. We're not talking about guys that potentially could be, there's no Tyrese Halliburton. Be like, all right,
there's no all-stars there.
There's no potential. Like Grimes is I think could be a really good player down the line, a nice piece. We don't know yet.
Yeah, they're all great role players at the end.
Like we don't have
nothing more than that.
I don't think Obi's going to be an all-star type. I think he could be a good player, but
I think Obi has to be moved.
Like, so everybody wants to play the young guys, but like, there's no one there that I'm like, okay, all right, if he gets more minutes, man, he could be something for us. There is that.
The only one I see is Grimes, and that's he's not going to be an
and
all-star.
I
He's
think
going to be a
Grimes could be
great hope.
a good starting two, in a down the line, right? I think he could be a really good guy who can average 14, 15 a game, that type of player, right? Could play solid defense, nice, could be a very good solid two-way player.
Yeah, maybe just like Eric Gordon or something.
Yeah, something like that down, but nothing more. I don't think he's going to be an all-star, and if he is, good for him. But it's just this roster is in flux. The fix.
It'd be amazing what a guy like Tyus Jones would have done on the Knicks this year. Like literally just anybody that could have run that spot.
And they could have drafted. Like it's just
Tyus is a free agent this summer. That's why I was using him as an
and there's an abundance. There's I know there's not a sexy free, but there's some guys like you mentioned Tyus Jones, just Jalen.
But like if you go sign Tyus Jones and DeLon Wright, like both of them, and like just literally like there's no drop off from when you sub them out. You can mix and match them. Like it's not ideal, but they're fine.
But it's better than what they've been pulling out for the last whatever amount of years. Well, like I would and people would probably look at Tyus Jones just off like that's not sexy. But
he's fine.
Listen, I loved him at Duke. I thought he was very good. He was a big reason why they had success at Duke.
Memphis loves him.
Memphis, he's been great in Memphis. There's no, like I said, there was no drop off when Ja got hurt. They stepped in and boom, they continually played great basketball. So, all right, no more Knicks talk. It's I'm gonna throw up. It's bad. It might get worse. You
got a week and a half off though, so
yeah, that could be good. That's too much time off in New York. That's too much time off in New York. It's bad here, but we'll see what happens. It's rough times in New York. It's definitely rough times in New York. But I want to get to a few injuries, and I want to talk about the draft a little bit, see what you guys like. But let's talk about the AD injury. He's really bad sprain yesterday, so he's going to be out for a while. And I also want to talk about Zion. He's there was rumors that he was supposed to be ready to come back in December, and obviously he's had a major setback. He's probably not going to play. He might need a second foot surgery. Yeah. So those two guys obviously have had some injury history, and all that. But the first AD. Do you think how do you view AD's going forward this year, and do you think it's over for the Lakers this year without AD? I mean, it's been tough. They've had a miserable season as well too. One of the most disappointing, along with the Knicks, Hawks. There's a bunch of teams that have been disappointing, but Lakers definitely on top. One of the most disappointing, but no AD. LeBron seems frustrated. Obviously, the Westbrook stuff has just not worked out, which, I kind of predicted that. Most of us said that dynamic was not going to work. So AD's probably going to be out for a while. It was a really bad ankle sprain, and he's had a lot of injuries, obviously throughout his career, but this year too. So going forward, what does this mean for AD and his future as a Laker, and just for the Lakers this season, dude? Is this done? Should they just wave the white flag and just be like, all right, this season, we're not going anywhere this season?
I mean, for AD, like not much. Doesn't really mean a whole lot. Like he's hurt. Like sucks.
Yeah.
But I'll say this though. When he went out for the first time all year, I felt like watching the Lakers. We actually saw them fight and scrap a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like we actually saw them. You kind of band together and really you saw LeBron was meditating on the bench, like trying to find a way to will that team to a win. And he scored or assisted on every single basket they had in crunch time in the fourth quarter. So I mean, I don't know. Maybe this team over the All-Star break finds a way to, band together and scrap and fight until AD gets back. And, the thing when you have LeBron and AD, all it's about is getting in the tournament. Like all you have to do is find a way to get in the tournament and then hope that your star power carries you. Now, is that super likely? No, but that's how they have to approach it is hey man, just keep scrapping, keep fighting, find a way to get into this play and find a way to get into the tournament. And the moment you do, then you've given yourself a chance to compete because, they have that much talent. They are that level of talented where they just can get in there and compete and hope that their top-line talent wins out and just continue to scrap and fight. And for the first time last night, I felt like we saw that. They beat a really good Utah team. Yeah. Just basically kind of where they willed themselves to victory. And I don't feel like we've seen a lot of that from them. I feel like we've seen a lot of frustration and disappointment from that roster. And last night it was almost all right, you know what, kind of kind of like, fuck this. Like, we're going to get it. We're going to band together and we're going to fight and scrap and find a way to win this game. And they did.
Yep. They definitely a good win, against a good team. Urson, flip that from AD. I want to go talk to you about Zion. Obviously, he's only played, I believe, 83 games. I could be wrong, but it's around that range. He's only played 83 games, like 117 DMPs since he's got drafted. How concerning is it, for you, for him going forward in his career? Obviously, possibility of having another foot surgery. We all know that he is a big boy. So, and we've seen this before, unfortunately, Greg Oden, we've seen both sides where, we saw Greg Oden and his career only played one full season of basketball in his career, right? 82 games. But we've seen Embiid, who missed 2.5 years, and we've seen how he's, so there's two spectrums of it, right? It can either go the Oden way where, he's out of the league, in his 20s, mid-20s, or you could overcome it like Embiid did, with foot injuries and all that, and still have a successful career, maybe even an MVP. He could possibly be the MVP this year. Could have won it last year if he wasn't hurt. How are we feeling about Zion going forward? How concerned are you? I know we all want to see him on the court. He was an all-star last year. The NBA wants him to be one of the faces of. We all know that. We want him to be a face. He's still on commercials and stuff. How concerning are you? It always sucks seeing great players get hurt. Derrick Rose. We've seen this before. Brandon Roy. Some of the names that come to mind. Greg Oden also. How concerned are you about Zion in his future?
To be honest, I'm not that concerned because I think it's the Pelicans' fault. Because Embiid, what the Sixers did good, they benched him for 2 seasons. He didn't play. And Zion was almost ready-ish, and he played. And he got injured and sat down again. I think if you sit that guy for at least one more season, get him 100% healthy, I think there's going to be a whole lot of difference than play 10 games, get injured, play again, get injured. Because that's what happened in the last 2 seasons. This season, he hasn't played at all. But for Zion, to be honest, I think he was forced to play. He was potentially going to be the face of the league. He was hyped that much. Even with Embiid, it was not the case, just like it was with Zion. So I think it's mutual conflict of interest that, the marketability of the league versus what the player is going to do on the court. I think that's really, that really messed that guy up. But to be honest, I'm not very that worried. Of course, it's a risk to pick a big boy with foot injuries. In the draft, you're going to face these problems. But to be honest, Pelicans should have waited out. His rookie year, just wait it out. Make him sure that he's 100% healthy, and then play him for the 82 games, rather than play him for 20 games, get him injured again, miss 20, play 20, miss 20. So
he should be shut down for the year.
For sure.
He should be shut down, and you just get him healthy and get him healthy for next season. I mean, it seems like they're trying to put some pieces around him. They just got CJ. Obviously, they got Brandon Ingram. So they got some, Valanciunas. They got some pieces. It's just a matter of him, being healthy. And let's hope he's healthy. Let's hope AD is good. Those guys have been hampered by injury, so let's hope they're okay and all. All right. So final topic. I appreciate Walker, first time on the show. Appreciate him being on the show. Urson, as always, being on the show. Let's talk about things one of the things we like to talk about a lot in the NBA draft. And I just want to get your guys' thoughts on some guys. We just talked about, before air, we talked about Jabari, and how, for me, I've had Paolo as my number one, and I've had him because I've loved his game since high school and all that. So it's kind of like maybe some bias in the story, and I'm being a Duke fan too. But I think I might have to make a change at my number one spot and put Jabari at that spot. If I'm a GM and I have the number one pick and he's there, obviously he's there, it would be really hard for me to pass up on what he can be now, which can impact. He probably comes in and gives you instant 14, 15 points off the jump, right? Around that, right? And then the potential to be is through the roof, right? It could be 25 a game, all-star, MVP. I think he has the biggest upside in the draft. It's scary how it's crazy his upside is. So it would be really hard for me to pass up on him. As much as I love Paolo, I love AJ, Chet. it's hard for me to pass up on Jabari. Give me your guys' thoughts on Jabari. And if you had the number 1 pick right now, Walker, and I'm going to go with you, Walker, first. You are the Spurs. You have the number 1 overall pick right now. You are the GM. Pop says, yo, you got the keys, Walker. Who we taking? I know you like some guys. I know you like Chet, but is Jabari your guy? You taking?
I literally run the Jaden Ivey hive, and I'm taking Jabari. Like, yeah, I mean, if you watched him last night too, like, I mean, you just saw all the different kinds of flashes of potential.
Got a lot of the bag too. He got bag. Like, he's got NBA like skill set. Like,
yeah, I mean, you saw like the post fades in the mid range and stuff like that. You saw some of the defense. I mean, you saw the range. Like, you saw how far out he can go, and just what it looks like when he gets confident and when shots start to go down, when he's used as number 1 option. It's just hard not to fantasize about what he could be in the right spot. And if it's not San Antonio, which I'm obviously my biased ass, that's where I want him. But can you imagine what he would look like in Detroit next to like Cade and Bagley and all those guys like that? Like, it could be a problem. Like, it could be a young team that's a problem with a really good head coach. And, I'm sure that they would be fine trading Jeremy Grant if they could replace him with Jabari.
I think Jeremy Grant's gone. I think they want to put Bagley in that 4 spot and let Bagley, because I saw last night some highlights of Cade and Bagley, and I'm like, okay, this is what Bagley needed. Bagley needed.
And then you put Jabari and mix him into that, and all of a sudden it's really fun. It's like, yeah, I mean, but yes, to answer the question, number 1, I mean, I think it's Jabari. It's not super close for me right now either.
Urson, what about you? I know you just dropped your big board. I dropped my big board, but I might change it. I might make some changes to it. Right now, you're the Knicks, number 1 pick. Finally, we get it. First time since number 1 pick since Pat.
Yeah.
First ever lottery. You got the keys. Knicks fans, they're in your DMs. Who you taking? Who you taking number 1? Is it Jabari or?
I'm trying to look at the bigger picture, because if you look at the NBA draft last 10 years, athleticism was the number 1 thing, But this season, I kind of see a switch with skill. I think Jabari Smith is a perfect example. He possesses both. He's a great athlete, and he has so much skill, man. And he's a potential 2-way superstar. He's already a great defender.
Yeah.
I think the league doesn't have a lot of lockdown defenders, Draymond, those kind of guys. You don't have them too much at the forward spot, So I think that's what makes that guy special. So he's so skilled. He's a great athlete. He checks all the boxes. So I think people who pick him number 1, I can't argue with them, because you can understand both sides. But for me personally, I'm still leaning towards Chet, but it's mainly, of course, the only thing, the narrative in that one is that who's picking number 1? If the Knicks are picking number 1, don't bring Chet to New York, because it isn't going to work. But if you have a team just like, for example, Oklahoma City, if you have a team just like Houston Rockets, I'm 100% sure that I'm going to pick Chet from Jabari Smith. But who's the number 1 pick in 5 years, regardless of who's going number 1 in the 3 months from now? I think Jabari Smith is going to be the best guy, 100%. But to be honest, Chet is so special for me. I think I'm not going to pass up on him at number 1. It's more of a coin flip, man. You can understand both sides, but I'm a totally sold idea of Paolo Banchero being the number 1 or the number 2 option, or number 2 pick in this team. That idea is gone. It's either Chet or Paolo.
Yeah.
Some people have Jaden Ivey right there too, but I'm not buying that one. So that seemed too high.
Yeah.
This year's class is just as a 1A and 1B. That's Chet, that's Jabari, or vice versa, man.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the 2 guys I think probably will be the top. But give me a guy this year that you feel like stocks up, and give me a guy who's stocked down. So Urson, you go first. Give me the guy whose stock is just absolutely went through the roof, and give me a guy's stock who's just dropping.
This year I was focusing mostly on those, not role players, but guys who are really great off the ball, man. Because we see so much guys in college with so high usage that you're not going to get all these touches in the NBA.
No.
For example, a guy like Marshawn Beauchamp from the G League Ignite, I'm totally sold on that. Yeah. I think he's going to be a lottery pick. Both consensus boards had him at Yeah, stocks up for sure. I think I had him at the second round when I started with the 1.0. I have him sitting at number 15. I think he might be moving a few spots up. So Martian Beauchamp is no brainer for me on that one, man. I'm really high in this game. I think the fit for the Knicks for Martian Beauchamp is really good. So if the Knicks have the 12th or 13th pick, that's the guy they have to take, man. Of course, you want the leading guard, but outside of Ty Washington, who's also arguably not the best option in this year's class, you don't have really a good leading guard, in my
No.
opinion. But the guy who
Yeah,
is
because guys like
structured
Kennedy
down,
Chandler and like Dyson Daniels, those guys you may be better off taking later on in the draft, not
Yeah.
where Knicks potentially could be taken.
the Knicks need the guy that can attack the basket and can score efficiently at the rim. And Martian Beauchamp is doing exactly that.
Yeah,
He's a good one-on-one defender. He makes a lot of off-ball plays. Those kind of guys, you gotta take it, man. You gotta have a couple of those guys on your team. I think the Spurs are a good example with the depth they have at the wing spot. I think the Knicks, which depth do they have at the wing spot? RJ Barrett, he's going to be an
they
all-star
don't
one
have.
day,
I mean, they got
but he's
Cam
not
Reddish,
going to be
but they don't.
multiple all-star.
They don't
Yeah.
play Cam.
I think Cam Reddish is not going to have a huge role, but Grimes, RJ, that's
Yeah.
practically it. And RJ is going to be an all-star. Grimes, I'm not so sure, but that's really it, So. But one of the guys that is being on the decline for me, I think you already named this guy, man. Kennedy Chandler. I think he was in
Yeah,
most of people's lottery picks. I think
he
he's
was in mine
eventually going to be
originally. Yep.
second round pick because
Mhm.
Alonzo Williams, although he's older, he's 23, and when the league
He's
starts,
good.
he's the best point guard in college basketball.
He might be
I'm
ACC
pretty
Player of
sure.
the Year. That might be the ACC Player of the Year.
So another takedown we have, I think Kennedy Chandler is going to be a second round pick. Alonzo is going to be a first round pick, man, because he really showcased what he can do. And guards like him, those are the guys like him that can make, for example, the Celtics, although they have Derrick Rose, I think Celtics was the perfect example. They can make life easier for such ball dominant wings who are forced to create their own shot, but are doing it too much. Just a guy that brings relief to a team. I think Alonzo Williams in New York is going to be a good fit. I think every point guard is going to be a good fit, so that's not a good example. But Alonzo Williams is going to be a guy that you could plug and play in a lot of teams, man. Such as the Washington Wizards, such as maybe this Boston Celtics. So Kennedy Chandler is the guy I'm selling, and Alonzo is also a guy that he's rising on.
Walker, what about you? Who's the guy who's risen the most for you this season, and who's the guy who's dropped the most for you this season?
So I mean, it has to be stock up wise. It has to be Johnny Davis, right? I mean, because he went from off the board to projected top. He's a lottery guy. Yeah. He's not a top 5 guy, but he's a lottery guy.
I've seen him as high as 6 on some people, and people I respect in the draft. I've seen him as high as 6. That may be a little too high for me, but that's how
I have him at 13, man.
I'm reading Sam Vecini's mock from today in the Athletic. Right now as we speak.
Yeah.
And he has him actually to the Spurs at 7. So
that's high. That's
really high. And in the blurb, the long write-up, it talks about like most scouts you talk to, they're like, we would love to have him in the mid to late lottery on our team, but we just can't go there in the top 5. But point being, like, he was off the board and was kind of an unknown. And then all of a sudden, National Player of the Year candidate in college basketball, scoring like 34% of Wisconsin's points or something like crazy like that.
He's clear.
Yeah.
Clear de facto number 1.
He's been incredible. And so when you mix all of that in, I think he's got to be the biggest riser. And then actually Erson stole my biggest faller. It was Kennedy Chandler. He's sitting at 30 in this mock. I think that, or he's sitting at 28 to Memphis in this mock, but I think we had all kind of expected him to be right around the top 10 or in the lottery kind of early in the year. He just turns the ball. He just turns the ball over too much too. Like, I've gotten to the point where watching Tennessee in college, I really would actually rather see his backup play over him. And that's a problem. It's a problem.
Yep.
But another guy that I'm kind of curious about is Blake Wesley. Like I've watched a lot of Notre Dame this year. I've watched a lot of Notre Dame this year because I bet on them to win the ACC. So like I watched them a lot, and like he's kind of like I've kind of grown to love him, and he's similar. I hate to say similar to Johnny Davis, not in styles of play, but in terms of kind of like load of responsibility for his team, like they ask him to do so much that I think he's going to be so prepared coming into the league. He has to do so much. I mean, he hit a huge shot last night too against Boston College to take the lead, and then they promptly gave up a layup in transition to tie it. But and then he played really well in overtime. But Blake Wesley is one whose stock's another one that I think is rising too. And that's reflected too in this mock. That has the Pacers taking Wesley at 23, which is really, really high, I feel like, for him compared to where he's been. So
yeah, he's definitely someone that's a few guys that I feel like that I've liked that have risen for me. Walker Kessler.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that man block. He just had a triple-double with blocks. With blocks.
Yeah.
In college. That's hard. That's hard to do at any level of basketball. CYO, whatever, to do a triple-double with blocks is hard to do. So he's also Abaji from Kansas to me. I didn't even have him ranked in like my first mock-ups, like big board. I didn't even have him. I had him outside top six. To me, he's played absolutely like he's finally lived up to that potential that a lot of people like. Are we ever going to see him? Finally light it up, and he's there for a reason. And for me, like I mentioned, Kennedy Chandler has definitely dropped a lot. J.D. Davidson for me too has dropped a little. But also guys like E.J. Liddell, that's Mo's guy. He's risen a lot.
I sent this to Mo, but this mock has E.J. Liddell going 27 to Miami.
Oh, if that happened, man,
dream coming true for him, man.
Mo would, oh my God, like Mo would have a conniption if that would have happened.
I know. We'd never hear from Mo Murphy again.
No, he would go off the grid. He'd get in the jersey and all that. All right, so I want to talk about one guy in particular before we sign off. Shaedon Sharpe.
Mm-hmm.
He obviously changed everyone's boards and all that the minute we heard that the possibility of him going he's eligible for the draft. Obviously, has not played a minute. And Walker's dog. Well, who does Walker's dog have right now? Who would Walker's dog? That beautiful, beautiful dog in the back.
What do you think?
Who would she take with the number 1 pick?
What do you think?
Yes,
I think it was Chet.
I think it was Chet, man.
All right,
It looked like Chet.
You gotta trust her. You gotta trust her.
She's all going.
She's all in on Chet. So obviously Shaedon Sharpe is he's going to be the biggest like. How do you scout him? Because he has not played a game yet. All you have is high school tape of him. How does he change everything if he does decide? Because I've heard people say that he might go back to Kentucky, he might go to G League next year. How does he change the whole draft dynamic? Because he's obviously a tremendous talent. I mean, he's a sensational combo guard that can do so many things, but we haven't seen him play. Other than high school. That's the last time he played. So, has the size and all that. But what's your thoughts on Shaedon Sharpe? And if you had to say right now, just based off what the film you have right now, where would you take him right now? Feel comfortable taking him? Walker,
he's a top 10 guy for me, but I think he's going back to Kentucky.
I've heard that too. I've heard from a lot of people who are in that.
A lot of people I respect around the Kentucky program think he's going back to Kentucky. Now, granted, like a lot of that can change, so I'm not gonna sit here and try to tell you
he could be a number 1 pick next year. Like that's how good he is. Like he could come back and be a number 1.
When you're on a roster with John Calipari as your coach, who has proven what he can do with that level of talent time and time again in terms of preparing you for the league, even if you're not number 1 overall, like look what a guy like Jamal Murray did. Like, I mean. I think he's going to go back to Kentucky. The family seems to have communicated to Calipari that he's going to be back at Kentucky. And Shaedon seems to say that he's going to be back at Kentucky, but you know how that goes. Like that can all change. It's 18-year-old kids. So like this can all change at the drop of a pen. So we'll see. But I think right now I would lean he's going back to Kentucky. But if he comes out, I mean, you have to feel good taking him in the top 10, I think. But I don't think you can take him in the top 5.
Erskine, what do you feel about Shaedon?
I don't know. I think Walker already said it. The coach, who's one of the greatest, maybe the greatest college basketball coach all times. If he wants the guy and he's going to say he's going to number 1 pick, why not stay? But I also think he's going to stay because another important example for these guys is NIL money, and he's getting paid big money.
I forgot about that
top 10 pick.
The
He and
NIL stuff.
Ty both are driving Porsches.
Yeah.
That,
Just
and I think
why
that's
enter the
going to
league right
change.
now?
And I think with the draft,
He's gonna stay.
more than ever.
I'm almost
Guys are
certain.
gonna. They were not. How many times have we seen so many underclassmen go? Before obviously the NIL stuff, underclassmen go to the draft and then they don't get drafted and they're screwed, right? Because they gotta get the two-way deal. They gotta go through the G League or overseas. Now you're gonna see guys be like, all right, I might dip my toe in and see. All right, maybe if I get a guaranteed first round, I'll go. But if I'm not a first round pick, I go back to college. I go get me a 7-figure deal at Kentucky or whatever, Duke, and I'm gonna go make money, and then come back, and then I could be a top 5 pick. Shaden, that could definitely happen for Shaden, where he comes back, gets a massive NIL deal.
Yeah, I think
that's and he could be the number 1 pick next year. So I think that's a gamble that you're willing to take. Like you go to the draft this year, maybe you're top 10, maybe you're 15, whatever, just because there's so many guys this year and we just don't know what he is. Come back, you ball. He's gonna ball. You ball out at Kentucky. Do your thing, average 15, 8, 20 a game. Come back, you be the number one pick. Potentially be the number 1 pick next year, and you still get money. I mean, that's we're gonna see a lot more. I think we're definitely gonna see a lot less names underclassmen. We see hundreds of names, apply for the draft. That to me is gonna drop significantly because guys are just gonna be like, all right, I'm not gonna get drafted or I'm not gonna be a first round pick. I want to go back to college, go get some money. And just go that way, and maybe I'll be I'll bump my stock next year. We're going to see a lot of that.
He has 2 chances.
Yeah,
he has 2 chances: just to combine and work out some teams. And I'm not sure if I'm the GM, I'm the number 1 pick. I see a guy at the combine working out good. Okay, I'm sold. I'm going to pick him with the number 1 pick. That's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. I'm almost sure that he's going to return to Kentucky because why should he play? I think the money is not the issue. He's getting NIL money, good money. He's going to play for under one of the best coaches in, I think, the history of college basketball, maybe in the best, who's saying he can be the number 1 pick. So the pieces feel together. I hope he returns. I think if he even goes top 10, it can be a bust real easy, and that's going to be a waste of talent, man. Mm-hmm. Because how many guys, I think that's maybe too long ago, jumping from high school to the NBA, man. That's not, when's the last time that happened? So if I were him, I would stay with Kentucky.
It's just probably not ready for the league that young.
Yeah, that too.
I think the best thing is to stay.
Exactly, stay.
And he has the money already, so that isn't the factor.
You're gonna get the money, so there's no pressure, right? There's a lot of guys are pressured to go to the league because they want to be able to provide for their family, which you obviously understand, right? But now that aspect is gone. Now you're getting 7-figure deals in college. And you can improve your stock. Like it's okay to stay in college now. Like that issue is no longer a thing no more. Where the pressure, I gotta go make this money.
Yeah,
you can make money, stay in school, improve your stock massively. And he can go from being he could be a top 10 pick just based off his EYBL tape and all that. But now he goes back, he could possibly be the number 1 pick next year. So to me, and you get 7-figure deal and a chance to win the national championship because they got some studs coming in next year.
Mm-hmm. Derek Lively also top 10 picks.
Yeah, they got 2 top 10 guys, in the recruiting class. So they got some studs coming in.
Derek Lively, is he signed for Kentucky?
Hit the transfer portal.
No, Lively is going to Duke. Lively's at Duke.
Going to Duke.
It's
I thought it was going to Kentucky.
They got Livingston and Wallace. Yeah. In case on Wallace.
And that's
so
before they even hit the transfer portal.
Yeah. So
I mean,
I think the rumors of him go back to Kentucky. I think he will do that. Possibly be the number 1 pick next year.
I hope he does. I think entering this draft it doesn't make sense, but
national play like
it makes more sense to stay.
Yeah, it makes sense to stay. Obviously, I think he'll get drafted just based off his like I said, his EYBL film alone because he was a monster. But
6'5",
possibility to be the number 1 pick.
So.
And there's no pressure, you're gonna get money, you're gonna get that money. Hey, but whatever decision he makes, whatever is best for him. But he's going to be definitely someone that's going to be coming across a lot of people's boards and seeing where he goes. He's going to be one of the biggest X factors in this draft. But guys, I appreciate your time, chopping up with me for this last hour and change. Appreciate you guys joining me, this afternoon. Definitely appreciate. I appreciate Walker's dog making another cameo. She's definitely the highlight. Walker, just leave. Just leave the dog there. Just go. You can leave. Bye, Walker. Just leave the dog. But like I said, appreciate you guys. So before we sign off, tell the people where they can find your social media if you got any projects coming up. Walker, like I said, appreciate your first time. It was a great, having you on the show for the first time. Long time coming. Definitely won't be the last time you be on the pod. So, tell people where they can find you and if you got anything coming up.
Yeah, so Chris Bolton and I do One Shining Pod. You can find that on Spotify. And then follow me on Twitter at WalkerBailey8. I'm typically most active on nights after the Knicks play. You'll find me in Spaces or whatever else.
Taj Gibson enthusiast.
Pro Taj Gibson fan account.
Alec Burks.
Yeah. But anyway, seriously, yeah. So I'll be kind of all over. I bounce in and out of Spaces, not just Knicks stuff messing around, but I'll bounce in and talk Spurs. I'll bounce into who knows what. So, but yeah, follow me at WalkerBailey8, One Shining Pod on Spotify, and that pretty much covers it.
There you go. Urson, like I said, appreciate you. You've been on this show plenty of times. Always fun chopping up with you. Where can the people find you? And you got anything coming up?
Yeah, you can follow me at eDemberNBA. I tweet mostly about the NBA draft, the New York Knicks, also a lot of other teams. I try to keep it as even as possible, There's definitely a goal for me next season.
You need more Ryan Tannehill analysis from you. I need more Ryan Tannehill analysis because you're quarterback.
I was looking for
the
tighter spaces, but I couldn't find
obviously,
any.
Urson is not from the States. So since he's joined Off the Ball, we have Americanized him a lot, where he's breaking down Ryan Tannehill, Ben Roethlisberger. So I think we need more quarterback breakdowns from Urson. He breaks down the NBA, draft and the Knicks perfectly. I think we need more QB breakdowns from Urson. So hopefully we'll see more of that.
Well, maybe next season. But it was mostly to trigger Walker, about the time.
It's great. That's great. But like I said, I appreciate you, gentlemen, for joining for joining the pod and chopping up for me. I'm Chris LeBron, Off the Ball Pod. You can find me where I'm most active. Also, make sure to follow Off the Ball Network. Make sure to go there, offtheballnetwork.com for all the great articles and stuff. Urson posts draft stuff and all. I'm going to post draft stuff also there and all the other great stuff we post there. Make sure to follow Off the Ball Network at OTB_network on Twitter, Off the Ball Network on Instagram, Facebook. Check out all the live content, all the great content we have. Like I said, Walker's got a great pod with Chris Bolton. They talk a lot of college basketball. Urson's always all over the place talking everything, basketball, NBA draft, Knicks, all that stuff. Follow him. Follow everyone else. We got entertainment working. We got Jeff with all his movie stuff coming on. We're expanding. We're growing. Check out all the great sponsors. Bet Us. Use the promo code Off the Ball. You want to get some money? Let's win you some money. And Built Bar, all the great sponsors. Check it out on our sponsor page on offtheballnetwork.com. So on that note, I'm Chris LeBron, Off the Ball Pod. That's Urson. That's Walker Bailey. Walker's dog. Make sure to shout out Walker's dog. Give her, if she ever have a Twitter page, follow her. But on that note, be well, be safe, take care. Appreciate you guys for listening, tuning in. And that's it, guys. Peace out.